Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how to make a side lace up and a button down shirt dress with some collar. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so very much. So I already marked my buttonholes and button allowance. I marked 3 inches for that, and the armhole, that's the armhole line, the waistline and the hip line. I also marked my length and I added 1.5 inches hemming allowance to it. So the next thing is to mark your shoulder and add half-inch sewing allowance to the shoulder and connect to the armhole. So to get your neckline measurement, you're going to measure around your neck. Whatever you get, divide it by 6 and mark it for the neck width. So after dividing mine, I got 2.5 inches. So I'm going to mark 2.5 inches for the neck width, and for the neck depth, whatever you get, just add half-inch to it. So I'm just going to add half-inch to the 2.5 inches neck width I marked. So that will be 3 inches. So I'm going to mark 3 inches for the neck depth. And for this tutorial, I'll be using 1¼ for the shoulder slope. So I'm going to mark the shoulder slope and connect to the neck. So the next thing is to mark the bust, your bust circumference divided by 4. So I'm going to mark that. I'll be adding 1 inch ease allowance and half-inch sewing allowance. Please make use of the allowance you know you can work with. But for this tutorial, I'll be adding 1 inch ease allowance on the bust and half-inch sewing allowance on the bust. And for the waist, I'm just going to mark the waist and add 4 inches ease allowance on the waist, 1 inch that allowance and half-inch sewing allowance. Also on the hip, I'll just mark the hip and add 1 inch that allowance and half-inch sewing allowance. So I'm just going to connect whatever I have on the hip. I'm going to connect it to the hem. So as usual, mark the midpoint of the armhole. So I'm just going to measure 0.75 inward from the midpoint. Then I'm just going to connect and cut out. The next thing is to mark the darts. So I'm going to be adding half-inch allowance to the nipple to nipple measurement. I'm going to mark and connect like so. So the next thing is to determine where the darts will be starting from. So I'm just going to add 1 inch to my under bust and mark. That is where the dart will be starting from, and the side lace or piece of fabric will be starting from my under bust. So my under bust is 14. That is where the piece of fabric on the side where the lace will be, that is where it will be starting from. It will start from that 14 inches. So I'm just going to give a name to that lace up, the side lace up piece of fabric, because I don't know what to call it, but I'm going to give it a name so that you guys can understand when I talk about it. So I'm going to call it bandage. So the next thing is to determine the length of the bandage. So I'm just going to mark 4 inches down from my under bust like so. You can add any inches you want to add. It depends on your preference. So on the shoulder, I'm going to remove 1 inch from the shoulder like that, and I'm just going to connect, and that is a new shoulder. So on the new shoulder, I'm going to add half-inch allowance. That's the sewing allowance. And I'm just going to connect. Then the next thing is to cut it out. Just cut like so. And mind you, when you're cutting the darts, don't cut it to that point. Just leave like 1/4 of an inch so that it will be easy for you when you're sewing. So give where the bandage will start and we stop a tiny notch. So moving on to the back panel, I've already marked the length and the allowance, the hip line, the waistline, the armhole line, the shoulder, and the neckline. Don't forget the neck width we used for the front is 2.5 inches. So the neck depth for the back will be ½ inch. I'm just going to connect like so and just leave an extra fabric on the upper part for the shoulder allowance. And don't forget the allowance you used for the front and side seam is what you are going to add to the back side seam. So the next thing is to mark the 1 inch we removed from the front panel shoulder. So I'm going to mark it and connect like this. Then after adding it back, I'm just going to add 1/2 inch sewing allowance to it, and I'm just going to connect. So I'm going to mark the dart nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 plus 1/2 inch allowance, just the way we did for the front panel. So mark the main dart, add 1 inch to the under bust, that's the main dart, and where the bandage will be starting from is the under bust. Mark the under bust and mark the bandage length and just cut out. So the next thing is to cut the bandage itself. So I'm just going to fold my fabric like so, fold it into 4. I'm cutting 2 at a time. So from that folded part, I'm going to take the bandage length, which is 4 inches. Remember, I marked 4 inches for the length. So I'm just going to add 1/2 inch allowance to that. So remember that other part is folded, so there's no need for allowance. So I'm just going to add 1/2 inch allowance like that. And for the bandage wideness, I'm going to take out my exact nipple to nipple measurement on my tape rule. Mark your waist divided by 4. My waist divided by 4 is 7 inches. So from that 7 inches, I'm just going to deduct 0.75. So you can deduct 1/2 inch, you can deduct whatever you like. Just make sure you deduct some, because if you don't, by the time you tighten the lace on the side, the bandage will be overlapping on the waist. So I'll be deducting 0.75. So I'll be left with 6 1/4. So I'm going to mark 6 1/4 and just add 1 inch sewing allowance to it. That 1 inch is for the both sides, 1/2 inch on both sides of the bandage. So I have 2 already, so I'm just going to cut 2 more. So next thing is to cut a small piece of fabric and fold the hem like so. Starting from the back neckline, mark 4.5 inches and just connect. So I'm just going to trace the line on the right side of the back panel. Then I'm going to take that small piece of fabric and place the folded hem on that line and top stitch. So after doing that, cut out the excess. So I already cut my sleeve. This is a normal basic sleeve. I have a video showing how to cut normal basic sleeve, and I'll be putting the link in the description box below. So the next thing is to measure around your cuff. After doing that, fold your fabric, your piece of fabric into 4 like this. Fold it into 4. Mark your round curve divided by 2, then add 1 inch sewing allowance. For this tutorial, my cuff length will be 4.5. I'm just going to mark 4.5 and add 1/2 inch sewing allowance to it and just cut out. Don't forget to label your sleeve, label the back and label the front. So on the right side, now I'm going to be marking this on the right side, and on the back part of the sleeve, take out your sewing allowance on the sleeve, and from that point measure 2.5, and from that 2.5 measure 4 inches upward. So let me take it again. Take out your sewing allowance here, that point, 1 inch is my sewing allowance, and from that sewing allowance measure 2.5, and from that 2.5 measure 4 inches upward like that. Then just connect like that. After connecting, just cut it. So I already cut out 4 pieces of fabric. I have the big ones and the small ones. So the big one is 6 inches long and the wideness is 2.5 inches. The small one is 2 inches wide and the length is 5 inches. Take note of that. So the next thing is to fold the buttonholes allowance and the button allowance. Remember, I added 3 inches. Just fold 1 inch over and fold 1 inch over again using your iron, then top stitch. So as you can see, I've joined the back facing on the back panel and trimmed the excess. So the next thing is to work on the bandage, the side bandage. So now I'm just going to take the allowance I added and just connect like so, and take the other part and just connect. So that is the part where I'm going to sew on. So the other side is the part where you're going to join with the darts. So turn the bandage to the right side and iron. Turn it to the right side through the dart space and iron. So remember, we notched where the bandage will start and end. So the next thing is just to pin the bandage on those notched parts. So just pin it like so. After pinning, just pin down the darts and just sew, and do the same to the front panel too. So the next thing is to join the front and the back shoulder. Place the front on the back like so, right side facing each other. Take one of the back shoulders like this and pin it. So after that, take the other back shoulder and just turn it over like this and pin it. Take it to your sewing machine and sew. Do the same to the other shoulder. So after that, just top stitch from that shoulder through to the neck to the other shoulder. Then notch the center back. The next thing is to measure around the neck and set that aside. So the next thing is to mark the collar stand. I'm just going to mark the neck measurement. I'm going to mark it like so and connect. So after that, I'm going to mark the midpoint of the neck measurement, and I'm going to take 1 1/4 for my collar stand. I normally use 1 1/4 for my collar stand. You can use 1.5 inches. So the next thing is to mark the midpoint again and just connect. So after that, from that point, come up by 0.75, and the other point too, come up by 0.75, and just connect to the midpoint. So the next thing is to rule a straight line. So I'm just going to mark my main collar, and for the main collar I'll be using 2 inches for that. I'm just going to mark 2 inches and I'm going to connect. So after that, I'm just going to mark 1 inch inward from that point and connect like so. And I'm going to curve that collar stand. I'm going to curve it like that. So from that point, I'm going to come in by 1/4 of an inch, and the other point I'm going to come in by 1/4 of an inch. Come in by 1/4 of an inch on both sides like that and connect to that line. So from that point, I'm going to come out by 1/2 inch. Then I'm just going to slant it to the line. Then that is all for my collar and my collar stand. So I'm just going to cut it out. So I advise you use hairstay. I only have hairstay in black, and if I use black, you guys won't see what I'm doing. So I had to use this white gum stay. So the next thing is to place both collars on your main fabric. And mind you, the folded part of the collar and the folded part of the fabric should be on each other. And just add your allowance and cut. So another method you can use is, after cutting out the collar on your stay like this, just place the collar directly on your fabric and iron. After ironing, add your allowance on both sides and cut out. So I added the gum stay on one piece of the main collar like so. So just place the main collar together like this, right side facing each other, pin down, and take it to your sewing machine. And sew like that. So I also had the stay on the collar stand, just one piece of the collar stand too. And I used my iron to fold the allowance on that part of the collar stand. So the next thing is to place the main collar in between the collar stand, and make sure you notch the midpoint of both collars. Just place them together like this. Place the main collar in between the two collar stand. Then just take it to your sewing machine and sew through like that. So mark the midpoint of the neck like so, and place the midpoint of the collar stand. Place it on it. And just pin like this. Remember, you are pinning the one without stay. The collar stand without stay, you're pinning it with the neck first. So after pinning, just take it to your sewing machine and sew. So the next thing is to notch the neck. So you're going to push that edge. Yeah, that edge, push it inward like that. Then just start pinning like so. Make sure it's covering the seam, the neck seam. So just pin all around like that. And take it to your sewing machine and top stitch. The next thing is to work on the sleeve. So you're going to take the smaller piece of the fabric. We cut out the small one, the one that is 5 inches long and 2 inches wide. Use your iron to fold 1/2 inch on both sides like this and fold over again. So don't forget we are working on the back part of the sleeve, and this is the right side of the sleeve. So after doing that, just place that tiny piece, place it in between like that. Make sure it is facing the smaller part of that slit. Then just take it to your sewing machine and top stitch. So after that, just trim the excess. Then turn it to the wrong side. Then take the bigger piece, the one that is 2.5 inches wide and 6 inches long. That's the second piece, which is the placket. So take the bigger piece on the wrong side, place it like so, pin it down, and stop on that point. So just sew and stop on that point. So after that, just notch that part so that it will be easy to turn it to the right side. After turning to the right side, so I'm just going to fold it like that, fold the seam inward like that, fold it again and fold over like that. Make sure it is covering that part. So take it to your ironing table and press. And don't forget to fold the upper part too. I forgot to mention that. So I'm just going to show you how to sew it. Please don't forget to click on the subscription button and please share and like this video. Thank you. So when you get to that part, just sew a bit. Then turn it like so and top stitch. join the sleeve to the armhole. Make sure the right side is facing each other. The back of the sleeve is facing the back of the bodice. The front is facing the front of the bodice. Then pin down like so, and take it to your sewing machine and sew. Pin down your side seam from the sleeve, then just take it to your sewing machine and shape it. The next thing is to work on the cuff. So I use my iron to fold one part of the cuff like this. Then fold the cuff like so, pin it down on both sides and just sew. Turn the sleeve to the wrong side. Then place the cuff like so. And pin around. Just pleat the excess like so. Pleat it. You can pleat it twice. Just pleat it like so. Take it to your sewing machine and sew. So after that, just pin the other part of the cuff. Pin it on the sleeve like so. Make sure it is covering the seam and just top stitch like that. So fold the hem of the shirt like so. So to get the length of your buttonholes, measure your button like so and just mark whatever you have for your button measurement on your fabric like that, and just make your buttonholes. Then open up your buttonholes. So the next thing is to fix the button. I'm just going to place this sellotape on the button and place it on the area, on the part where I want to fix the button on. So this will prevent the button from moving when I'm sewing. And I'm just going to fix the highlight, and I will meet you back and I'll show you how it looks on me. Alright guys, that's it for today's tutorial. Please like, share and subscribe to my channel, please and please. Thank you so much for watching. See you again soon. Bye.